Hello everyone, we are back with WordPress for Designers Day 17 here on blog.themeforest.net. I am Drew Douglas and we are ready to tackle our back-end slider integration. You'll remember that right now we just kind of have our slider hard-coded with the HTML just straight into one of our theme files, and we talked about how even though that works and gets the job done, it's not really quite that flexible, especially for an end user. So let's say we were selling this or doing this theme for a client, someone who is not very tech savvy that was going to use it all the time. And they know no HTML or anything like that, and they want to add another image to the slider. Well, if they were doing it right now, they would have to go in, find, upload the image, via FTP, put it in a list item, link to it, update the total, for our little counter thing, and they'd have to do all kinds of stuff. So using a bunch of WordPress functions and options, we can actually pretty much automate this to make it really, really easy on the end user. So that's all we're going to do and focus on today. It's just going to be one file. I'm going to take it especially slow today for two reasons. One is just because this is probably the most complicated thing that we're going to have done so far. And then two is just because I'm, as always, following some notes I have here, as I don't like copy and pasting the code. I like walking you guys through the code line by line, and I want to make sure I don't mess up anywhere and I don't miss anything. So I'm going to take it extra slow today, and we are going to have a working, back-end integrated slider when we're done with this. So stick through it. I think you'll really learn something. Okay, let's go ahead and open up Firefox here. Oh, come on now. My computer's just been running really slow with all my, there we go. Whenever I have the, video recording software running, it always seems to eat up some of my memory. As you can see, I got the beach ball going. Okay, yeah, I wanted to mention that there's recently been a WordPress 2.8.4 security release. It was kind of all over the place, but people were able to reset the admin password. So go ahead and upgrade to 2.8.4 if you haven't, since just save yourself a headache there. I just wanted to mention that quickly. Okay, so here's where we left off. We had our slider, and it works. It works just fine how it is now, but we don't want it hard-coded. So what we're going to do is go into Coda. Now I gotta get Coda up here. Okay, and if we open up featured section.php, this is going to be the only page we're going to be working with. I'm going to go ahead and copy the contents of this file and just kind of preserve it here in just a new blank file, just because I want to be able to refer back to how we did things the old way compared to how we're going to do them now. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of all that, and the first thing you'll notice here is we have a div ID of featured section. So we will just put in our div ID of featured section. We're going to recreate all the markup that we just had, and we'll go ahead and throw that div in there, close it. And as soon as we go down, then we realize, well, uh-oh, we already have hard-coded, text here, our title and our content and all of that. So how are we going to pull that out? And that's where we'll go back to Firefox. We'll go into our back end, and you'll see I have a new post here called Our Portfolio. I'm going to click Edit. Okay. First thing I want you to notice is under Category, I've added a new category named Slider, and I've put this this one post under the Slider category. So we will only ever have one post in this category, and it will be for our front page slider, or our featured section. So I've gone ahead and I've given it a title, which is Our Portfolio, just some really basic dummy text. And then the most important thing here is I've used the built-in WordPress media library, I guess you would call it. If you come over here where it says upload / insert, and you click on the first icon, it'll say add media files from your computer. You can select files. So if you go ahead and select File, I'll show you now, and I'll just go over to the koala bear, select it, and once it's uploaded it will bring me to this page where I can put in the caption and a few other things and click Save All Changes. So if I go to the gallery now, you can see that I have 5 images. I'm going to get rid of the koala we just added because we don't want a duplicate there. I'll click Delete. Okay, so now that we're on the gallery page, we can see that this post, our portfolio post, has 4 different images that are attached along with the post. They're not inserted into the post, although you can do that. You can insert an entire gallery if you want. These images are just for now associated with this post ID. So yeah, make sure you remember that until you insert the images, like if we wanted them to be literally inserted for like a blog post kind of thing, then we can do that. But right now they're just associated with our post ID and for this particular post. So now we can exit out of that once you've added your 4 images. So go ahead and take your time and add as many images as you want. And you would just go ahead and click Update Post. Okay, so now what we have a post in a category that is essentially holding all of the information that we need for our slider, because our slider is really nothing more than 4 images, a title, and some text. Then of course the buttons with the counters, per image on them. So we're going to go back, knowing that, to our featured section, and we're going to make our div class of slide info, which is going to hold more of our information. Again, if you refer back to our old markup, you will see that we had this exact class. So we're going to stick to the same markup and naming procedures as we have been. However, inside of div class slide infos, we're going to do things completely different. Since we want to pull from the back end, we're going to use a custom WordPress loop and/or query here, using the WP query object. So I'm going to open up some PHP tags, and I'm going to create a new variable called slider posts, which is going to be an object. So we'll say new WP query because we want a new WP query object that we can work with. Now I'm going to say slider posts, and I'm going to query. Whoops. Okay, and I'm going to say show posts is equal to 1. There shouldn't be more than that anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then I'm going to say cat for category is equal to the category ID of slider, which is 4. You can find that out from the back end of WordPress if you didn't know that. Okay, so now we've set up our query. We're going to go ahead and run a while loop here. We're going to say while slider posts have posts colon slider posts the post. Okay, so now we're inside of a while loop. Next thing we're going to do is we need the title. So like before, we'll wrap it in some header tags, some H3 tags. And you'll remember from way back in the early WordPress for Designer days that the title is nothing more than a call to the title when you're inside a loop. Next we need the content. If you refer back once again, we had our title here and then we had our content underneath. So we'll just say PHP the content. And we're also going to throw this little interface plus design plus CSS HTML in there, just hard-coded. We could figure out another way to pull that out from the back end, but this isn't really a big deal, just an extra paragraph. Okay, so now we have our div class with slide info, and it is already pretty much containing everything we'll need information-wise, not images, but it already contains the title and the content, and that's all we really needed to pull out for this little section right here. We'll get to the buttons and images here in a second. But we already have the title and and the content already being pulled here. So now what we're going to do is make a new class called div class container, which is just like our old one. And inside of that is going to be another div class of slides. Go ahead and close those off now so I can try to keep track of all this markup here. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit more PHP that I'm going to need to spend some time talking about. If you refer to the link I'm going to put below, Chris Coyer and Jeff Starr, I believe Jeff Starr was the one that actually published this article, but they run this Digging Into WordPress site, which is fairly new, but it's got some really good stuff on it. And when I was preparing for this just the other day, I came across one of their posts that's awesome image attachments recipes for WordPress. And basically it just, really went in depth in talking about how to pull out images in different ways and things like that from WordPress. So if you do want to check out this post, we're going to be working with this code down here under the heading of display all attachments for each post. If you want to run through some of this and give it a read, this is almost the exact code we'll be using. So again, thanks to Chris Coyer and Jeff Starr, who always seem to be helpful with the things they post. We're going to be using something very similar to this code right here, which is basically allowing us to pull out every image in a given post and display it. So without further ado, let's do that. The first thing we're going to do is set a variable, and we're going to create an array out of it. You can do that by just saying array. And next up, we are going to pass in some parameters here. So we're going to say order, something like ascending. The next item will be post type. And we'll just say the attachment, because we are obviously looking for the image attachments. Post parent, so the the post identifier, the post parent is going to be the post ID, and we can use this since we're inside of a loop right now. The post MIME type, that is going to be image because we are looking for images. I was going to try to keep this array a little more formatted. I apologize. Post status, and the value of that will be null. Oops. And lastly, number of posts, and we'll point that to -1. You don't really need to worry about what all this means. It should be pretty self-explanatory. Basically, we're just setting up an array of different arguments that we can later pass to a WordPress function called getPosts. So again, if you want to read more about this, I recommend going to the link I have below to that page on Digging Into WordPress. Anyway, now we're going to say attachments, create a new variable called attachments, and we're going to make a call to getPosts, and then we will pass in the argument array. So that will store some information for us. Now we will put in a conditional statement that says if attachments is true, then we're going to do something. So if there were some kind of attachments according to our query that we just ran, we're going to do something. The first thing we're going to do is set up a variable called slider total, and we're going to say count attachments. This will give us a total count of the number of attachments because it comes out in an array form, and we are going to use that number for later for, well, we're going to use it for this. We're going to use that total number for this 4 right here instead of hard coding it. Okay, so we'll say if attachments is true, we'll set the slider total, and next we're just going to run a really basic for each loop that outputs the images. So we'll say for each attachments as attachment singular, say echo, open up a div, we'll say wp get attachment link, and we'll say attachment ID full, and full stands for we want the full size image, not a thumbnail or not a scaled down version. False means it's not going to link to an attachment page. It'll just link directly to the image. And that's all we need to pass to that function. And lastly, we'll close our div. So that one line right here, this little echo line, that is what will actually output the image. The WP-GetAttachment link function will grab the attachment ID, which in this case is one of our images. We'll wrap it in an anchor tag and throw it in there for us. So yeah, that's that. I don't really think that needs any more explaining. So that's outputting each one of our attachment images one by one right there in the for each loop. Okay, and that really is outputting our images, so we can move on from that. And now we just have some basic copy and pasting to do. So we'll come over here to div class of featured button. This can stay hard-coded as it won't change. And just like so. And we can do the same thing for our portfolio button. This also won't be changing, at least nothing besides the text inside of the anchor tag. Okay, and now for what I think was actually kind of one of the trickier parts, even though in hindsight it's not really that tricky at all, but it just requires a little bit of thinking beforehand. Take a look here at the bottom, and well, let's look at our old one first. Okay, notice that we have an unordered list of with the class of pagination, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have a total which is out of 4. So we had to come in here and hard code this knowing that we had 4 images and our total was out of 4. Well, I told you earlier that we can get that number 4 or however many attachments there happen to be by using the PHP count functions, excuse me, on the attachments array. So now we have access to that 4 now, or whatever that number happens to be, the total number of attachments. But now the question comes in is, how do we, output, without having to hard code anything, how do we output, a custom list item with the number in it for each one, for each image that there is? And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking right now that could be accomplished with a loop, and you are absolutely right. So we're going to do that now. So we will start an unordered list with a class of pagination. I apologize if I'm starting to lose my voice here. I think I might be, because I talk too much. Okay, and inside of that unordered list we're going to open up some PHP tags once again. We're going to say for I equals 1, and I is going to be equal to 1 because we know we have at least one attachment. There's got to be some kind of image there, or at least there should be. And that's good enough for now. We'll say I is less than or equal to the slider total, and you'll remember that this is a variable that we saved up here on line 31, which is a count of our total attachments. So while I is less than or equal to slider total, we will say I plus plus. Okay, and I'm actually not going to use the brackets here. I'm going to go for the WordPress syntax, which is like so. Okay, so now inside of our loop, what do we want to do? Well, we just want to do something like this. We want to echo out some list item tags with an anchor inside of them. And inside, in between the anchor, we want there to be, the number, the current number, the current count. So we'll say echo, list item anchor, I, and close the anchor in the list item. So that'll go, 1, 2, 3, 4 for as many attachments as we have. Hope that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. And then we'll go ahead and end our for loop. Now you might be thinking, well, what about the last, list item of total here? What, you ended the for loop before you could put that in. So how are we going to get that? And we actually need to put that outside of the for loop because we already have that information. So we don't need to loop any of that. We can actually just hard code it like so. And then just right in between the anchor tags, we will just echo the count, or the total. And we'll preserve how we had it earlier, like that. And then we'll say slider count. Oh, or slider total. Did I save it as slider total or slider count? Slider total. I'm losing it today, guys. Alrighty. Format that a little better. Okay, and if we look up here, we will notice that our while loop is still open, so we can go ahead and end that and save it. Okay, so we've gone from this, little hard-coded HTML to some more powerful PHP and WordPress functions to pull all of that out of the back end. So we've saved our featured section now. The moment of truth, we should refresh and nothing should change. But everything should be coming out of the back end section now. So if we refresh, you'll see nothing's changed. If I go next, I can still see all the attachments that I added. We can make sure that still works by adding, one more image. So let's add an image to the gallery. And we'll just add, I don't know, another bird thing, a kookaburra. We'll call it crazy bird, and we will save all changes. Get out of there and update the post. And this is where you can really see how useful it is. If I come over here, refresh my page, you'll see that that is updated to 1 out of 5. If I scroll through, we'll see there's the bird once, there's the cat, and the bird again before looping back to the first image. So that's pretty cool. I don't know, if you ask me, that's that's how we integrate our slider into the back end. The only thing the user has to do now is just come in here, assign, if they don't already have the post made, assign a post to the slider category, type in a quick title and some text, and then just use the really easy WordPress media manager to add a few image files. They add the files, save the post, and this is what they get. You get a really nice slider effect without having to do much. So if you got it, if you understand it all right now, you can cut off right here. But what I want to do is just kind of walk through what we just did one more time from line 1 down to line 63, just to make sure that everybody understands. We started off with our basic markup as always. We came over here and we set up a new object using WP query, which is obviously a class somewhere in WordPress. We use that to we set up a custom query, and we want to show one post in the category ID of 4, which is our slider category we created. We created a basic WordPress loop within our query that you should be used to. On line 11 is where we inserted our title and our content and a little more content there. Line 17 is where we start getting ready for our images. We wrap it in the 2 div class containers, and we get ready to set up some PHP. Our arguments array held all of the necessary array information for the call to get posts that we would have on the next line. So you'll notice we passed arguments to get posts, and it used those arguments to make a query of the attachments for us. We then made sure that the attachments actually existed, made a count of the total number of them, and then we looped through the attachments one by one, and we output them to the browser in the same format that we did earlier when we had this hard-coded. We scroll down to line 42, and we added our featured button and our portfolio button, which did not change at all. And then lastly, we needed our pagination unordered list. So we opened up an unordered list tag, and we started a for loop. We just counted the number of times we set the variable I equal to 1, and while I was less than the total number of attachments, we added 1 to it. Then we output a basic list item class with an anchor and the current number of the current image number that we're on. After the for loop ended, we put in our list class of total, which lists the total number of images, and we just used our slider total variable that we already had earlier up here for that count. We ended our final custom loop that we set up with WP query object, and we close our final div. And that is all she wrote, guys. That is how it's done. That's how we did it. So what page do you guys want to do next time? It's really up to you. You let me know what you want to knock out. There's still at least, I think 3, maybe even 4 more big pages and things we could do. We could do a contact form. We could just, knock out another one of these pages up here. So I'm all ears, guys, as always. Let me know what you want to do. Do us a favor, please do us a big favor, and go ahead and subscribe to our RSS feed if you haven't already. I know a lot of you have, and I really do appreciate that. It really helps us bring all of these to you guys free of charge. So I hope you guys are still enjoying the series. Let me know what you want to do next time. Let me know what questions you have. As always, happy WordPress coding, and have a wonderful day.